welcome to the 6th general meeting. So excited to see still a good number of y'all. We know it might be in the middle of midterm season and everyone's got a lot going on before Thanksgiving break, but still really glad that y'all can join us tonight. And as usual, we have a great set of speakers, a couple of people presenting today. So you guys should definitely stick around and look forward to that. In the meantime, we're just going to go ahead and get started with the AMSA updates.
All right, first thing is point requirements. It's getting towards the end of the semester, so points will be due in a bit. I believe they're going to be due on December 9th, but I just wanted to go over the point requirements real quick. You can see them on right here on the screen. They're viewable also on the master points sheet, which can be found in the member profile page or on the member resources page on the website. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me if there's any point discrepancies that you think exist or anything else concerning points. Please reach out to me about that.
And just real quick, be sure to reach active status this semester if you want to apply for an officer position next semester. It definitely helps out and reflects well in your application.
Yeah, and to help you reach active status, we have an easy points document. It's filled with many things that are really there to help you get those points really easily in order to push yourself to the active status. This easy points doc is found in the members tab on our website, and it's full of things like following us on social media, doing outside volunteering, filling out the feedback surveys, posting on our forum on our website. A lot of easy, quick things that you can do to get points and push you to that active status. So if you need easy points, feel free to check that out on our members tab in the website.
All right, and just a quick update. Just really want to thank everyone who applied for a Kaplan scholarship. But just a reminder, don't delete or get rid of those applications because those essays will probably be about the same, if not very similar next semester when we again offer 2 need-based scholarships and 2 merit-based discounts. So really hope the winners are able to utilize those resources to their best of their ability. And we wish everyone luck in studying for the MCAT, whether you're doing it over the winter or preparing for a summer test. So as usual, we are a pre-med org and we offer lots of resources. So just be sure to take advantage of those. Oh gosh, sorry.
Okay, so just something for y'all to know. You can find the password to the member resources on the Discord. So just go to the enter commands channel for that. I would highly recommend just checking it out and going through some of the cool documents and information we have there. We have lots of tips for outside volunteering, general meeting slides, a doctor directory, MCAT guides. So yeah, check that out. I would encourage everybody to also submit some gallery photos for the semester soon so that you can not only get the points, but also because the banquet's coming up and it's always more fun to see more photos that show off kind of what happened this semester. And as you're wrapping up with the semester, another great way to get points is through forum posts. Instructions for that is on the forum. But if you are confused, feel free to reach out to me and I'll help you out because it's not always intuitive how it works.
Okay, so just some FAMSA stuff. Not many updates since we last met. Hopefully you guys have been meeting up with your FAMSA people and stuff so far. Anything that you could possibly need for that is on the members page or on the Discord group as usual. And let me know if you have any questions. Like Armand said, December 9th is the last day for points, and that's also the last day for FAMSA meetups to count. That's when all your social points and your bonus points that you get from FAMSA will be inputted and stuff as well. So yeah, keep up the great work, keep up meeting up with your FAMSAs. And November, again, is still double points month. Remember that at the end of the semester, the FAMSA with the most points will get a reward. So yeah, look forward to that.
What's up, guys? If you're on campus or near campus or in Austin, definitely go get a proactive community test. You can get tested once a week. And yeah, just keeps everybody safe, keeps yourself safe. Definitely check it out. They have walk-ins and you can also schedule an appointment on my UHS. And to cap off the year, we got Banquet coming up. This is the last social event of the year. It's on Saturday the 5th from 7 to 9. It's going to be on Zoom. Everybody's welcome.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to read the how because that's self-explanatory. But yeah, we want all of y'all to attend, whether or not you are active or inactive. We want to celebrate the end of this semester with y'all. Happy memories, good feelings, all of the above. And it'll be very fun. We have a lot of activities planned for y'all, including superlatives and speeches, some icebreaker games, and also our lovely officer assistants have also planned an amazing race. So stay tuned and come to Banquet and find out what that's all about.
Hi everybody. So I have one MR event this Friday left for the semester. It's our discussion debate about Dr. Death, the podcast that was assigned for Medical Media Challenge this semester, and you can still sign up for that. That is a tiny URL that you can fill out now or on your own time that where you can submit requests for certain specialties for both speakers next semester as well as for the shouting program. I'd really appreciate any input on that so I can, of course, get people involved that you actually might be interested in. But otherwise, keep attending socially distanced shadowers events. If you still want to have a one-on-one meeting with me, that'd be great as well. Feel free to reach out to me. And also just thanks for an awesome semester. Oh, and it's not on the slide, but I just wanted to mention another reason to get active points, which I'll mention at our last GM. You have to be active for one semester to do the shadowing program. So keep that in mind if you want to do that in the spring.
All right. So next week is the last week for volunteering, or actually this week is. So yeah, 11/22 is when we'll have all of your points in. Tomorrow, Thursday, Sarah and Makia are going to have our last adult children's recording session. And so if you are in need of a couple more points, it's a lot of fun. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy it. And lastly, if you are volunteering outside and you're interested in turning in the form, that is also due by 11/22, which is Sunday, I believe.
Yeah, as for points themselves, right now, all points should be completely up to date. So that goes for all ongoing events as well. So check now, make sure that you have the 4 required ones. And then if you're missing any, or you are looking for more opportunities to get some, just shoot us a Discord text or email and we'll get back to you and help you out.
And then for the makeup meetings, the last one's going to be on Thursday, this Thursday. It's not going to be every other Thursday for this last one just because of Thanksgiving. So if you are in need of another meeting point, you can feel free to stop by that and you can get a meeting point through there. I won't be having one for the last GM just because it's the end of the semester. And then if you're still interested in buying merch, please do so soon because I'll be home after the break, so I won't be able to give you merch. And then lastly, if you haven't already and you're in need of some easy points, you can follow us on all of our social media platforms.
All right. So this Saturday we have our last last fundraising event. But just a quick reminder before I dive into that, the Chipotle profit share was this past Sunday. So if you guys still haven't submitted your receipts to the email, please submit it so that it gives me an opportunity to record your points. So this Saturday, we have a few alumni members coming to kind of talk about their experiences, kind of reunite with us again, and then just kind of having a fun time playing games while also having a fun raffle event at the end. So if you guys still want to sign up, the sign up sheet is still open. And also the raffle ticket requests are on the sign up sheet as well, and which will close on Friday at 11:59 p.m. So some of the prizes that we have are like 5 BOGO Gongcha cards. We have a Kendra Scott necklace, and we also have some bundles you guys could choose from our merch. So if you guys want to
participate in this raffle, please submit that request form and you'll be entered into our raffle event.
Alrighty, so our guest speaker today are two of our very own AMSA members who are here on behalf of CMHC. I'll hand it over to Joy and Varsha. If you want next slide.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. All right. Hey, y'all. Like Carissa said, we're both part of AMSA, so honestly, most of y'all have seen us by now. But also, we're also mental health peer educators with the Counseling and Mental Health Center. So we're going to put on that hat today and give you a little presentation over helping friends in distress. So really fast, just in case we haven't met before, my name is Varsha. I am a 4th year. I use she, her pronouns. And we like to share what our favorite self-care activity is when we introduce ourselves. So my favorite activity for self-care this semester has been buying plants and slowly turning my apartment into a tiny jungle. So I had like 3 exams last week, so I like stress bought a plant on Sunday. So that's the trajectory my life is following. So that's where we're at. All right, and I'll pass it on to Joy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joy. I'm a mental health peer educator, just like Varsha, at the CMHC, and I go by she and her. Something I like to do, I like to water my bamboo. I have it on my desk and I just like look at it every time I'm stressed and it just like relieves me. I also like watching Bob Ross. Like, he is so relaxing. I love him so much. All right, so for today, we're gonna kind of go over a real talk. And that's gonna focus on some ways we can support a friend who's in distress and in need of extra support. So before we start, we're gonna set some ground rules. What's said here stays here and what's learned here leaves here. All that really means is that we wanna respect everybody's privacy, their confidential information. So if they choose to share anything during this presentation, please don't talk about it outside of this presentation, but anything you learn here, feel free to apply that to your own life, take that away with you. And this is meant to be a very interactive activity, lots of self-reflection, love that. And you're welcome to participate by unmuting yourself or sharing in the chat. Feel free to turn your camera on and off during the presentation, whatever helps you stay focused and present, go ahead and do that. So before we get started, let's do fun, quick warm-up exercises. Varsha is going to lead that activity.
All right, cool. So we're gonna start off like very simple and easy for today. It is a Wednesday evening, so I don't know about y'all, but I'm kind of out of it. So really quick, we're just gonna do a share in the chat. So feel free to, like Joy said, type something in the chat, unmute yourself, whatever feels the most natural and comfortable for y'all. But we're just gonna start off with one of like our just like classic MHP questions, which is if you had to use a color to describe how you're feeling right now, what color would you choose and why? So I'm gonna give everyone like a minute-ish to respond. Yellow because I'm happy. Okay, legendary, we love some yellow. Washed out light blue because you're feeling mid. That's me. I thought of light blue too. Blue because of rough exams. Okay, light blue, gray because you're tired. Yellow, I'm happy. Oh, green. I see a bunch of green. Okay, green, anxious and stressed. Green for green thumb. So we have some different iterations on what green means. Yellow, but like not a happy yellow, but like a being on edge yellow. Oh, exploding yellow? Okay, maybe I'm a little concerned for Carissa right there. All right, sleepy gray, we got some gray back in. Oh, we have purple crowd coming in now. All right, I love this beautiful rainbow. I have like so many visuals and also slight concern for some of y'all, but we love to see it. All right, so now we're gonna move on to our next prompt, which is, what has been your go-to morning ritual these days? So again, feel free to unmute yourself, throw it in the chat, whatever feels best to you. Brushing your teeth, okay, yeah, basic dental hygiene. We love to see her in the morning. Coffee, Among Us. That's definitely a way to start the day. Go to class and go back to bed, that's me. I will literally log into microbiology and right after Dr. Saxena says her last word, I'm like, and back to it for me. All right, going to the gym. Wow, Donna's fitness legend. Couldn't be me, but I love that for you. Watching YouTube, that's also me. YouTube and Spotify are like the first things I'm on. Staying in bed for a little bit, snoozing that alarm, a classic ritual for the morning. All right, cool. These are really good responses. Thanks, y'all. So we're going to come back to a couple of these a little bit later in the presentation, but now we're going to move on to a bit more reflection, and I will throw it back to Joy.
All right, thank y'all for doing that. It was so much fun seeing all of y'all's responses. All right, so we're gonna hit the hard stuff now. Not really hard, but so this is gonna be our first activity, which is about reflecting and sharing. So I'm gonna give you guys about 3.5 minutes to kind of reflect about a time that you were concerned about a friend's mental health. All right, I hope everyone's had enough time to kind of reflect on those feelings. It can be really tough to kind of think about people that we love and have compassion for going through such rough times, but it's kind of important to kind of reflect on those moments. So now we're kind of going on to our share stage, which is kind of feel free to send it in through the chat of when you're reflecting over your experiences, what made you concerned during that moment? Feel free to send that in through the chat or through unmuting yourself. And I'll just put those down. For me, at least, it's like when my friends may be engaging in some risky behaviors. So someone mentioned feeling withdrawn.
I think sometimes in my experience, I get really worried when they start thinking in kind of vicious cycles and spiral thinking.
Yeah, maybe like toxic cycle of thinking. Constantly sleep deprived, right? So it's like starting to bleed onto physical matters as well. Unfocused. Maybe you'll notice they're doing maybe worse in academics or not coming to class or just not being present all the time. Crying a lot, right? Some of our emotions, some people don't really show them, but sometimes they come out. For me, like if I feel overwhelmed, sometimes people notice, like they notice my eyes watering, they notice that I'm going through such difficult things. And there's extreme self-deprecating language. So toxic language. Ooh. And then loneliness, right? These are all really great. No regard for future consequences, doesn't feel anything anymore. These are really great answers because these are commonly what we see in our friends. And all of us have gone through some very similar experiences. So now I kind of want to throw it out there. How did it make you feel? It's important to realize what's different about your friend, what they're going through, but how does that like difficulty from your friend affect you? For me, it might make me feel maybe helpless in the situation, scared for that person's well-being, worried and concerned. These are all really great. Yeah, how am I supposed to change their thinking to help them? And I really love the way you guys are thinking, because it's really hard when you have someone you care about going through such rough things, and it's really tough to navigate how to help them. Yeah, helpless. I see a lot of helplessness, And that feeling is definitely something I can relate to, and I'm sure many people can relate to. I don't know how to help them. All right, I really appreciate y'all sharing. So these are only some of the examples I wrote down based on what y'all said, but all of y'all who contributed, yes, those are all very true. So I just want to let you know that you are not alone in feeling all of these things. As you're reading through these messages, you can definitely have those moments where you're like, hey, that's a really common experience. That's a shared experience that we're having. So in our next slide, we're going to start talking about how we can recognize the signs of distress.
Yeah, cool. So like Joy said, we're going to go over a couple, just like a really high level overview on signs of distress. Nothing super in specific. And honestly, you guys really hit the nail on the head with like some of the signs you mentioned. So most of this is probably going to be reviewed for you guys, but just an important reminder from time to time. All right, so our first one is looking at decline in academic performances. So things like falling behind on schoolwork is a big one, repeated absences, and just like lateness in general. Also, if you see that friend is starting to ask for a lot of just like extensions for deadlines and things like that from a professor, and they usually don't do that, that's like usually not a problem for them. That's also kind of one of those impact on academics that we can see. And then also just like their behavior in class is something to take note of sometimes. So do they suddenly get really disruptive in class and like they're usually not? Or on the flip side of that, are they really avoiding participation? Are they getting really anxious when they're getting called upon? Things like that on the flip side. So usually they're like really outgoing, really participating in class, and now you're just seeing the complete opposite of that. So those are just some of the ways that you can see tangible impacts on academics when it comes to your friends. The next one, moving on to the right side, is overwhelmed or being overworked. So there's a slight difference between the two. So overwhelmed is the inability to stay on top of your responsibilities when you just have a lot going on in all aspects of your life. So like your relationships, your chores, what you have to take care of like with your personal life, school and academics, things like that. So you just have a lot on your plate, and that's kind of when you start to see people shutting down. They're running into autopilot. I know a couple of y'all mentioned like numbness and just like being on that sort of autopilot state. So that's definitely an indicator of that sort of feeling of being overwhelmed. So the other one is being overworked. So that's when you're taking on way more responsibilities than you can handle, and you're spreading yourself way too thin. And so that's when you're going to see things like people are high energy at like some points of their day, but then can get like really burnt out and fatigued and irritable, which I also saw a couple of y'all drop in the chat. So those are definitely indications of that. So moving on even further to the right, so we see change in emotional or physical state. You guys also listed this, so like pretty review for you, but appearing tearful or sad, that was one I think someone listed right off the bat. That's definitely a big one. Again, that irritability or anger outburst, that can be something that's like not really characteristic for that friend, but you start to see just because that's how their emotional state is sort of morphing in the situation. And then physically, you can see sort of deterioration in like dress and personal hygiene. So like someone said their like morning routine started with like brushing their teeth. That's good. But like if you start to like see things like that kind of like degrade, they're not taking as like good care of themselves as they normally do. That definitely might be an indication that they're going through stress or just distress particularly. You can also see weight change. That's a really big one too. So either a dramatic increase in weight or a dramatic loss in weight, both of those, either of them on the flip side, are also really good indications. And then obviously signs of injury. So cuts on arms, things like that, visible self-harm, all kind of come under change in physical state. So going down to the bottom row, a big one Joy mentioned earlier is alcohol or drug use. So that's something that often slips our mind, but like substance use is definitely a big one and can be a little bit harder to pick up like in the context of college. I know like with party culture and with college culture, sometimes it's really hard to distinguish as someone using this as a way to cope with extreme stress, or are they just like having a good time? But usually if you know your friend has like a certain pattern of like alcohol or drug use or non-use, and then that changes drastically, that can definitely be one to look out for. And the last one, you guys also mentioned this one, but social withdrawal, that's a really big one. And that's honestly one of the most common ones you'll see usually, and might be a little bit easier to pick up on too. But you'll see that they're becoming a lot more socially isolated. they're spending like excessive amounts of time alone. So like, I totally get it. At the end of the day, sometimes like my battery's drained, your battery's drained. Like you just want like 2 hours away from like all human interaction, right? You just like want to be lazing on your phone. That's totally okay, right? That's just like recharge alone time, but just like days on end of like alone time and just like really uncharacteristic withdrawal behavior, that's kind of those indications that you're looking for. So canceling plans, just being really flaky, bailing on a last minute basis, those are all things that can be like, okay, maybe this person is, something's happening. They're usually not like this. They're usually really good with plans and stuff like that. So definitely an indication. So now that we've kind of gone over some ways to recognize when we have a friend in distress, I'm going to pass it back to Joy and we're going to talk a little bit more on how to like now tangibly help that person.
All right, thank you, Varsha, for going over the signs of distress. I know that this has been a pretty heavy conversation so far with talking about how we feel about our friends going through some difficult things, but let's kind of look on the bright side and see how we can help a friend in distress. So there's the ABCCs. It's a mnemonic, and I think as pre-meds, either for now or in the future, you're pretty familiar with mnemonics. They save the day in biochem and etc. But it stands for ask, being there, connect, and community. So asking is kind of like starting that conversation with your friend. So what kind of questions can you pose to help start that combo and then make that person feel really safe to share? So getting through that door, making that a great space to start sharing emotions. So being there. So how can we let our friends know that we're there for them? So this could be through using statements that emphasize non-judgment, validation, and support. Honestly, like that's what I love, is like being that friend and having friends who are just willing to be there to just listen. And it's such a nice feeling. And we're going to go over some more statements like that. And then C, one of our C's is connect. So what kinds of on and off campus resources might be available for your friend? So there's going to be lots of campus resources around that we're going to talk about later on in our slides. But remember, you're not your friend's therapist in any way. So you're not a professional, so you don't have to have all the answers. Being there and just offering those resources in a non-like forceful way can be a great way to say, hey, have you ever considered this? And then our last C is going to be about community. So who else in your friend's life can you that can also support them? You don't have to go at it alone, because you're a human being. You are facing a lot of your own challenges as well. So you don't have to be that only person that they rely on. Maybe try to look outwards and see what kind of other people your friend might be interested in talking with. So the main takeaway here is checking in with your friend and starting that conversation goes a really long way to get them the extra support. And talking about mental health is the best way we can reduce stigma, like having the conversations we're having right now. And there's other workshops where we talk about ourselves as well. And those just like build that space where we feel less isolated and get that support that we all deserve. So you don't have to be your friend's therapist. Yet again, simply listening, being there, and offering those resources is enough. So let's go over each of these parts in detail by offering some language you can use. So Varsha is going to talk a little bit more about asking.
All right, so like Joy said, I think it's really important that we learn what language we want to use around these topics, because I think for myself, when I was starting out with this, and most like other college kids that I've talked to, one of the biggest barriers is I don't know what to say, right? It's awkward. I don't want to make it awkward. What if I'm reading into this, right? Like it could get messy, all those things. So hopefully as we go through this workshop and you get a little bit of a sense of the language to use in a compassionate way, that can kind of bring that barrier down a little bit. All right, so on the screen, we have some examples on how you can really easily start a conversation with a friend. I'm not going to read them all out because you're literate, and if you're not literate, you will be after you study for cars. So you can use your own language and you can use whatever feels comfortable for you. That's a really big part of it, right? Like if you really casually joke with your friends and stuff like that, like incorporate that language, incorporate what feels natural for you, because that's a really important part of it. But you do want to make sure you are asking questions in a way that to kind of get them to open up a little bit, but also show that you care. So the really big theme I think you'll find when you read through these questions is that you are looking for questions that are meant to express curiosity, but also that you care, right? If you can find that sweet spot between those two things, that's really what you're going for, minus judgment, right? This is a judgment-free zone. We don't want judgment. That's like where it can kind of get messy. So as long as you are expressing that curiosity and that care, you're kind of in a good place. And for some reason, if you do ask a question and you see that the conversation starts to tend towards that person getting really defensive, you can just really simply respond with, hey, I'm only asking you because I care, right? I'm not here to judge. I'm here to listen if that's what's helpful for you, right? It's a very easy way to kind of just diffuse that situation, but it's honestly a lot easier to like find the language to ask the question. I think it can be a little intimidating, but as you can see from the questions on the screen, honestly not that painful at all. So with that, I will pass it back to Joy and we're going to talk about the B.
All right, thank you, Varsha. Oh, when you mentioned that cars, I think my heart stopped for a moment. I think everybody stopped for a moment, and if you don't know what it is, you will know and you will cry, but that's okay. All right, so being there, that's gonna be our B. And go ahead and read those statements, but I think my favorite is, I may not understand what you're going through, but I understand that it is real. So if your friend opens up to you, it's your job to kind of just be there to listen and validate whatever they're saying. So here are the ways listed all over here. And I think what's really important, like for me at least, all of these statements make me feel really warm if people said that to me, just because when I think negative things, I start like putting all these connotations like, oh my gosh, nobody would care, you know, when I feel these things. But having someone there who says, hey, you matter, what you say makes sense, what you say is real, just gives that more substance, gives like my concerns that solidity that I need to feel at the moment. So most times people aren't really looking for advice, but simply just being there and listening can go such a long way. And so now I'm going to pass this on to Varsha to talk about connections.
All right, cool. So like we mentioned before, you're not your friend's therapist. And like, I know that like can just like be said very easily, but like if you're someone that is prone to like taking a lot on to yourself personally or like being an empath, that can be really hard to kind of delineate and make that distinction, right? There's a difference if your friend gets like a little too happy at the AMSA Halloween social, right? And is like crying, like venting to you like all night long and you're like sitting there listening to that versus someone actually oversharing, overburdening you with stuff, right? And suddenly that's taking a toll on your mental health and your boundaries and your space, right? And that's starting to like, then you're seeing those like negative signs trickling down to you. That's not where we want to go, right? So it's really important that we can offer these resources and we can connect our friends to these resources. So we're taking care of ourselves, but we're also making sure that they're getting the professional and proper help that they need. So we're just going to go through a couple of resources because it's really common that not everyone knows all the resources that are available at UT. So we're just going to go through a couple and just also see ways we can frame asking friends and connecting friends to those resources. So on this slide, you'll see a couple of ways to connect friends to resources at CMHC, right? So just being really straightforward, no judgment, just informing them that like, hey, you can do a video or a phone appointment with no cost at CMHC, or being like, hey, let's give the crisis line a call, right? Or let's see a care counselor together. Like, do you want to look up those hours together? That's a really big one too. Sometimes just telling a friend that you were going to look up the hours with them, or you'll walk them to the SSB if like pre-COVID era, or just like taking that like first initiation step with them, that can go a really long way. So on the next slide, we'll also see a couple more resources about UT Outpost. So that's a really great place for food insecurity and just fighting food insecurity on college campuses. Also getting a little bit more support from SES, Student Emergency Services. That's also always a great place to go. And then our last slide has a couple more resources too. So we'll see that we have Sanger Learning Center. So this is like academic support. If you see class issues starting to pop up and those signs of distress we were talking about earlier, this is a great place to redirect your friends. And then we also see some peer support and support for all of our queer folks at the GSC. That's also a great place to redirect your friends to if you know that identity is kind of a part of their life or they're having issues in that space. So a lot of great resources and offices on campus that you can always connect people to. And if you're always just like unsure of what to do, there's always the crisis line and the behavioral concerns advice line to call. And we'll talk a little bit more about that I'll pass it back to Joy for community.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So we're back on new community. This is going to be our last C. Just a reminder, it's going to be ABCCs. I say that because you will be quizzed. Just kidding, you won't. But just remember that mnemonic as we're going through, but community. So who else can get involved to support this person? So you don't have to support your friend alone. Like I said before, start brainstorming on some other individuals and resources that your friend would be willing to talk to. So that's friends, family, mentors, professors, etc., and call on them for help. You don't have to do this alone. One thing that we might forget doing is taking care of ourselves. You too might need support while supporting someone else. So be sure to like check in with your friends, your family, your support network every step of the way to come up with ideas to keep you and your friends safe. I think what I like to say, this is a quote, you can't pour from an empty cup. I love that because I find myself, if I'm not in the right mental state, I can see myself acting in ways that might not be appropriate to me or not the best version of myself to people I care about. So taking care of myself every day in small pieces is really important to help others. All right, and we're going on to our group work, our second activity, led by Varsha.
All right, yes, everyone's favorite thing to do virtually over Zoom calls in the evening, group activities, hooray. But hopefully this will be a little bit of a good way to just kind of apply everything we've talked about thus far. So really fast, I'm gonna read a scenario in a bit, and then we are going to work through all these 4 steps. So the ask, the be there, the connect, and the community. Hopefully I can get like 2 to 3 responses, but y'all are AMSA, so I know you can do better than that. Of course, drop in the chat and mute yourselves, and then we'll kind of see if we can find a good way to support our friend and kind of work through all of these steps. So first, our scenario. So our scenario is dealing with Jordan. So it says, you and Jordan have been friends since high school. Jordan is outgoing and very active in his student org. However, since all of Jordan's classes have moved online, he has decided to stay home in Houston this semester. And you notice that Jordan hasn't been as active on social media and hasn't responded to your text messages. When you finally get a hold of him, he's having a hard time staying motivated and will most likely drop out of his student organizations. When you ask Jordan how they've been doing, they respond, oh, I'm fine, just tired. So how can you support Jordan? All right, so we're gonna start off with the first component of our 4-step process, so that ask component. So how can we start a conversation with Jordan, telling them that we're concerned about them, and then bringing in those 2 components, that curiosity and that care piece, without being judgmental. So if I could get maybe like 2 or 3 people to drop it in the chat, unmute themselves, which is kind of a way you can start a conversation. Yeah, very simple, but like straight to the point. I love that. Why are you feeling tired? Just a good way to kind of like, clearly they like try to brush out that question, but you can like kind of prod a little bit more, and it's like very unsuspecting. Cool. Anyone else have a different response? What's been going on? Yeah, that's like honestly like seems simple, but like a lot of these, they seem very simple, but they're very powerful. It's just that that question's very broad, shows that you're like ready to like be open and be listening, and that's usually what a friend in this situation needs. So that's awesome. Invite him to social events over Discord or Zoom. I like that. That might feed a little bit more into our connect component, but that's definitely a good way to like bring this friend in. So I like that you're thinking ahead. Very big brain of you. All right, cool. Thanks for the responses, y'all. So now we're going to go over to our second component, so that be there component. So how can we show Jordan that we are listening and that we are there for them? So what can we say to validate for you? That's definitely one. Just like affirming that like you are genuinely there for that person can be a really big deal. I'm here to listen. Yeah, just making sure you're really getting the point across that you're ready to be an active listener. I know also sometimes it's a little bit harder over Zoom, but like still trying your best over video call to like maintain that eye contact, right? Like if you're setting up a Zoom call with a friend and you're just trying to check in with them, like maybe putting the phone away for a bit when they're opening up or things like that, just like you would do in a normal like physical face-to-face conversation. Trying your best to kind of replicate that virtually could also really help. All right, so Mukil was definitely thinking a little bit ahead to this. So now I'm going to ask again, what kind of resources might we offer to Jordan? And how can we help explore those resources with Jordan? Also, bonus points if you can think back to some of those campus resources that we talked about too specifically. Care counselors, perfect. Yeah, really good example right there. Setting them up with a care counselor for whatever college they're in. Yeah, Sanger Learning Center for sure. Yeah, classes, you can check in and see, hey, how have classes been, taking them from Houston and definitely connecting them to Sanger if they need that. Yeah, very generally, how do you feel about exploring CMHC? Yeah, screen sharing, pulling up the website with them over Zoom. That's a really quick, easy way to do it. Yeah, seeing if they can talk to their professors for extensions. Maybe they've never had to go to a professor for an extension, or maybe they don't know about non-academic counselors. So that's a really good place to also connect them for academic support. Yeah, going with them to events and entertainment events for sure. Yeah, and cool, SES for sure. So if they're back home, they're in Houston, maybe family things are starting to crop up more so than they would have in previous semesters. Student emergency services is a really great place for that for sure. All right, so lastly, we're gonna go to that community component. So what else could we do to get Jordan more involved in supporting himself and like getting connected to his family or other parts of his community, things like that? What are some people in Jordan's life that we could get him more connected to, and how could we do that? Or just remind him that those people are there in his life too. So Daniel mentioned going to E&E events. That's one for sure. Getting him connected to different campus orgs for sure. Family, yeah, for sure. Making sure, like, that's so simple. And I know they're like back in Houston, you're like, oh, they're living with their family, obviously, right? But like making sure that they are reminded that they do have their family to still like turn to and talk to. That's important. Yeah, a significant other, if you know any like mutuals who are also in the Houston area, for sure, getting them to like check up on Jordan. Bring the whole friend group in, totally, yeah. Getting Jordan to reconnect with friends, yeah. Maybe if his high school friends are like back in town, he hasn't seen those people since he's been to UT, maybe you can be like, hey, I know y'all are in Houston, could you check up on him? Yeah, other org events for sure, AMSA, whatever it might be, getting them connected to that community. That's what we're all about. Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks for the responses, y'all. These are all really great. And hopefully by like walking through this process, you were able to see it's honestly not as hard as it seems at first. Once you kind of just like work through those steps, step by step, you can see how it can be really easy to just like kind of approach a friend and get them connected really easily, and also like keep yourself like in check and good, and also like respect your own personal boundaries. So that's very important. So we're not going to be able to get to the second scenario, unfortunately, because we are running a little low on time. We don't want to get through a couple more resources. But just really fast, if I could have like 2-3 people drop it in the chat. Just did you learn anything from that exercise? Is there anything you might do differently now when you were trying to support a friend? What was it like working with a group? Anything like that, just like 3 responses. Okay, thanks, Andy. Yeah, example sentences, definitely helpful for sure. Language acquisition for like tough conversations is like, in my opinion, the hardest part. So once you can just see it's like not that hard and like you just see a couple simple examples, that can really help. Yeah, different things you can say. Okay, Kevin mentioned different perspectives. There's always more than one way to help for sure, right? Like that, we just have the like ABCC order, but like it's not necessarily an order, right? If it's like better to maybe suss it out by pulling them to an AMSA social, like maybe that's the way to go, right? It doesn't have to be in the structured sequence, whatever is like really comfortable for y'all. Yeah, okay. Everyone seems to really vibe with the can't pour from an empty cup that Joy mentioned earlier. Yeah, that's like a big one, right? Can't pour from an empty cup and like can't do anything on a dead battery. So really just making sure you're taking care of yourself and your boundaries. All right, cool. Thanks, y'all. Yeah, knowing when your own boundaries are crossed, that's a super big one. Okay, cool. So really fast, we're also going to dash through a quick high-level overview of some campus resources. So I'm going to go really quick through the first one, the first two slides actually. So the first slide is just for our Counseling and Mental Health Center. So just a reminder that they're providing services virtually over just like video call and also just normal phone call, and that you can call their number, which is on the next slide, I'm pretty sure, and also always go to their website. Yeah, so right there, always available for you during normal business hours. And then they also have on their next slide, their crisis line. So that's going to be available practically that is available 24/7. And so that's just also a good number to call if it's after hours on a weekend, things like that. But you really need someone to talk to, or you are in distress or anything like that for personal use, that's the number you definitely want to be calling. So I'll pass it on to Joy to talk a little bit more about SES.
All right, I know we're kind of going a little bit fast because of time, but we're probably going to provide all of these slides for you. So feel free to come back to these to look at the numbers, resources in detail, and also the language. So there's also the Student Emergency Services. Here's the number located on the 4th floor of the SSB and assists the students in a range of things: emergencies, death of loved one, interpersonal violence, financial issues, academic concerns. We have walk-in appointments that are currently postponed, but you can contact them through this phone number and email them. So they also have the Student Emergency Fund for those students who are currently enrolled in that time of distribution, but that is available for you. And we also have the Behavior Concerns and COVID Advice Line. Here's the number again, and BCAL. That's kind of what it's called. I don't know why, but like when I hear BCAL, I just think of like some advanced math, which is, I don't know, that part of me. But yeah, it's Behavior Concerns and COVID-19 Advice Line. It used to just be called like BCAL, just the Behavior Concerns one, but because of COVID-19, new struggles, gotta add that. So pretty much it's a resource for anyone who's concerned about an individual and may not be sure of how to best help them. So you can also call this number, or you can submit an online form. Both are completely anonymous, so you can feel safe that your identity is not gonna come out. All right, and we're just gonna talk about the call for assistance.
Yes, really fast, just to like address something Daniel typed in the chat. So is our therapy session still free? Yes, individual counseling is still free. Group therapy is free. We also have a second care counselor now for CNS, if you didn't know. So we have 2 now for our college, which is super exciting. So they're able to take on a lot more students. So always free of use and always just like no shame in going there. So definitely reach out. So yes, call for assistance. Aside from the ABCCs, if there's one more thing I want you to take away from this workshop, because I know it is really info heavy, it is calling for assistance, right? If you or a friend are thinking about dying or self-harm or anything like that, it is imperative, it is your responsibility to call that CMHC crisis line or 911, right? Those are not things to be taken just like with a grain of salt, right? There's like the joking, obviously like you get out of like an OCHM 2 test and you're like, oh, I want to die. But if someone is really seriously considering those things or ideating on those things and you pick up on that and you notice, it's really imperative that you call those crisis lines. I know sometimes it feels like it can be invasive and you're messing things up, but I promise it is for everyone's safety in that situation. However, if it's like not as immediate, but there is definitely still concerning behavior going on, you are still free to call that crisis line or to call BCAL as well. They're there for you and they're there to walk you through the process and help you talk to that friend or get that friend into CMHC or things like that. So they're there to support you. So I will pass it back to Joy.
All right, and we're on to our last slide. So final thoughts. So first, checking in with a friend and starting that conversation goes a huge way, just making that an acceptable place to open up. So talking about mental health is the best way we can reduce that stigma, feel less isolated, and get that support that we all deserve. for me, that's a really personal thing, just because I was never able to open up for a long time, but being able to be in my cohort and talking about mental health so openly has really made me a lot more acceptable, and that's kind of carried on to my friendships as well. And you don't have to be your friend's therapist. I think especially as pre-meds, we have this concept of how do we fix things, how do we change things for the better? And that's part of it, but we're not therapists and we're not professionals. So simply being a friend by listening and being there and being present the whole time and offering these resources available that we've talked about is just all you need to do. And yet again, take care of yourself along the way. Don't forget about yourself. All right, and that's gonna lead us to our last slide. Thank you for all coming and staying for this presentation. If there's any questions, feel free to send that in through the chat or through, I know that's so cute. It's supposed to be like healthy horns and then mental health. And then we're like holding hands because they're like super related. Yeah, but if you have questions, unmute yourself or send it in through the chat.
Thanks, y'all, for being a great group. And as always, if you have any questions for the future or are concerned or just have any questions about any of the resources, you can always like hit Joie or I up. We're like in AMSA. And then if you don't have our contact info, just ask any of the officers and they can also snatch up from us. But yeah, thanks, y'all.
If you ever feel like you need to talk about anything, like just anything, like feel free to contact us as well. We're for the random chats.
Yeah, Joie and I got way too excited when we saw like an MHP AMSA crossover. Like it was like on the like sign up sheet and we were like, gotta go, gotta go.
We signed up so early for this. We were just like, what? AMSA's? Yes.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you guys providing this great opportunity for us, because I definitely learned a lot. And I know that there's quite a few different CMHC like student peer groups that do different roles. So maybe if anyone's interested, I would like to know more, and maybe we might ask y'all to like how to get involved with kind of the work that y'all do. So I think a lot of students might be interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kevin just applied. So like if you want like more information on like the newer application, I would hit Kevin up for your questions. But yeah, CMHC and UHS combined, so now it's the Longhorn Wellness Center. So if you were interested in being a peer educator, it's now just like Longhorn Wellness Peer Educators instead of just separately mental health or healthy horns. But yeah, if you have any questions about the program, feel free to hit us up or hit Kevin up. I'm sure we'll all answer your questions.
Yeah, just hope you guys are staying happy, healthy, and not overwhelmed with finals when we come back. So please do stay connected with us on Discord, and we will see y'all very soon.
Good choice.
Oh my
This is better.